Hi, I'm Josh. I am the child of an alcoholic and I'm back with another video on behalf of NacoaUK, talking about my experiences of being the child of an alcoholic and how that affects me in my life. So in a lot of the previous videos, I've kind of referred to and used the expression of my emotions and thoughts coming out of me sideways. And so I kind of wanted to explain exactly what I mean by that, and just to sort of dive into it a little bit more and kind of use a real life experience really, just to show you exactly what I mean by when something comes out of me sideways, like a suppressed emotion comes out of me sideways, and just how talking about this stuff and being able to be open and honest about the way I'm feeling and my thoughts, and I can look at the way that this stuff is coming out of me, process it and maybe learn from it, and just become a little bit more positive with the way that I'm dealing with stuff, and to help me live a more healthy, happier life really, as a child of an alcoholic. So yeah, I wanted to use an example, and so it goes back to when early in me and my wife's relationship, when we'd been together a few months and we were going to an event that my wife goes to quite regularly, and it was going to be the first time that I was going to meet some of the people that she mixes with in her profession, some of her friends, and so yeah, obviously naturally any normal person's a little bit nervous about stuff like that, but it's just a way that I dealt with the situation that I really wanted to look at really. And so when we arrived there, I was introduced to various different people, and what I found is during the day and during this experience, I became quite negative. I was quite sort of almost hostile. I became kind of arrogant and had a sort of negative spin on each situation. After being introduced to different couples and different people, on talking about it with my wife afterwards, I had a very sort of negative take on them, and I was actually being quite nasty about some of these people, and I really couldn't work out why, and it kind of it certainly ruined the day for me, and we sort of come away from there, and my wife was a bit sort of perplexed as to why I was being different maybe to what I'm usually like. And it was only through being able to look at myself, going back over the day and trying to process where this stuff started, I was able to realise exactly what happened. And so when I looked into it deeper, I went right back to the beginning of the day when we were heading to where we were going. At the time, everything seemed fine. But I do remember in the car on the way that my mind started to talk to me like it does, and I started to think about the situation, and I started to sort of think about the day ahead, and I started to sort of procrastinate really about what was going to happen. And my mind started to tell me, like it sometimes can with my self-worth, that these people were going to be a lot better than me, that they were going to be of a higher social standard than me. And then I start to get into this idea that they're going to find out, they're going to find out the real me, and when they see the real me, then they're going to think that I'm a waste of space. And this is all stuff that comes from these learned behaviours, from when I was a child and from when I was growing up, and the effects that all this being the child of an alcoholic has had on me, and the way that my mind processes these emotions. And so by the time I got there, I was actually quite feared up, quite scared about the situation, worried, and so I started to put on this act. This front was coming out of me, and I was starting to try and protect myself, but it was in like a negative way. Like I said, I was fronting out people. The fear made me be a little bit angry, and I started judging other people negatively, pushing my negative thoughts about myself onto other people, and it kind of, like I say, like I've expressed, it ruined the day, and it made me act in a very negative way, and it made me act like the person that I'm not. And see, through being able to go back and look at that stuff, realise the way that my negative feelings and thoughts have come out of me, rather than being able to just look at the thoughts on the way there and thinking, do you know what, I'm okay, I'm going with my wife, she's happy that I'm going with her, and not believing these thoughts, I allowed these thoughts to overtake my mind, and they made me act in a negative way. And that's one of the ways of this stuff coming out of me sideways. And so if I hadn't been able to talk about this, and I hadn't been in the process of looking at my emotions, looking at how fear, my low self-worth, and all this sort of stuff, not looking at how it affects me, I would never have been able to realise what was going on. And my anger at the world and all that would have just continued to get worse and worse. And that's kind of been the story of my life until I got to a point where I was talking about all this stuff and looking at myself and looking to change within. There's a story about circus elephants, changing the subject completely. There's a story about circus elephants, and this is relevant. When circus elephants are babies, they're tied to a stake and they have like a metal chain around their leg. And so the stake in the ground is enough to stop them being able to get away. And if they do try and get away when they're babies, it cuts their leg and causes them a lot of pain and a lot of distress. And so the elephants learn this. And the reason they do this to circus elephants is because when they're older and they're adult elephants, they're able to do the same thing, to tie a metal thing around their leg and tie it to the stake. And that elephant, because of its learned behaviour, will never ever try to get away from the stake. So they're big now and they're full of power, but because of the learned behaviour, just a small stake in the ground is enough to keep them there. And I think we can all be like this as human beings, and especially as children of alcoholics. The point of that story is to show you how we're very much like that. We have a lot of power inside, but because of the learned behaviours and the way that we've always processed stuff, we can go into adult life and these things that we've learned as children can continue to have a negative effect on our lives unless we're able to think outside the box, it's not the right expression, but and able to look in ourselves and the power that we've got in ourselves, that we can live normal, happy lives just like everybody else. And so I hope that's made sense. I guess the story is to keep looking at ourselves, and that comes through talking. And as always, NacoaUK is here, and that's the whole point of why I'm doing this. And the website, email and phone numbers underneath. So I hope we've all enjoyed this.